Good
That live button
morning.
was a little slow this morning. Good morning. Good
Good
morning.
morning. I'm gonna do a little. I need to do a little extra color today.
Oh,
Yes,
this is
better.
makeup on the show.
There we go. You know, it's just this little. This is my desk drawer lipstick. It doesn't actually belong in any sort of makeup area, but it's my "You're about to hop on a Zoom" lipstick. So let someone see your face. That's what that is. Because then I see like you can focus more on my lips and less on my giant eyebrows. So all good.
But I love the grass. Like, look at my wimpy little eyebrows. I am so jealous of your eyebrows.
Thank you. But you
You
get to
know,
have
it's
perfect hair, so
it's like everybody wishes they had what other people. Same thing. Like I've got the sickest, straightest hair on the planet, and like to see like beautiful flowing curls and waves. I'm like, oh. And
and then
even
the
if I
curly
try,
haired people are like, "This is a nightmare. You don't want this." The funny thing is that I've had both. So as growing up, my hair was pin straight, and even into my
really,
20s. Oh yeah, into my 20s, pin straight. I remember I got a perm when I was like 12 or something, and it didn't last like 24 hours. It literally just slid right out.
I don't know who did your perm, but being the daughter and granddaughter of hairdressers, I believe I was the youngest human being on the planet to ever get a perm.
Mm,
I think like I was like one. These are more alive to testify. I don't remember, but
that's
I
funny.
I
Your
always
your
had
mom was like,
perms.
"We need baby curls, damn it. We need baby curls."
And then there was the summer that so every summer my brother and I would go spend um 2 weeks with my grandparents so that mom and dad got a vacation from us kids. And, you know, grandma usually took us like back to school clothes shopping and so this one summer she decided she was going to also save my mom the hassle of giving me a perm and she did it. The problem is that my grandma at that stage in her life was basically only giving like little old ladies perms, little old ladies with
Tiny little
short
rollers.
hair. So she used those tight rollers. I had a full on like fro for that. And like
Wow.
my mom was so
Aw.
I was just embarrassed. I'm like, everyone's gonna make fun of me. But I didn't want to hurt my grandma's feelings, so I'm like, and I called her Ganny. I'm like, no, Ganny, it's fine. I like it.
I bet you look like Shirley Temple. I could just see that.
Mm-mm. But no, because Shirley, she had curls. She was like
Yeah.
Fritz, just Fritz.
Oh. So more like the guy from Twisted Sister, like that.
And I don't even know if there's actually, I do think I remember seeing one picture. I like someday when I'm going through old pictures, I will find it and show it to you. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think all other pictures I might have like did away with so that there's no recollection of this
I will tell
historic.
you, my hair was so straight that I remember like in second grade, I begged my mom for feathered hair because I wanted to look just like Farrah Fawcett. But my hair was so straight that I just ended up having like all these choppy little lines. So my school picture was awesome because the lady let me like flip my head over and flip my head back. And then I was like, go, here I was directing photography even when I was 7 years old.
Yeah,
It was only for that one picture. After that, it didn't because it had no wave. It had no, body to it at all. So and now look, now I have 7 different curls and they're all different patterns. And anyway, whatever.
it's amazing and gorgeous,
Thank
and
you. Just moving, who knows what the future will bring? I don't know. But
and
anyway,
enough about hair for this
I was
morning.
just gonna say, where are we even talking about hair? We're so silly. So silly.
It
There's
is kind
other
of
things
silly, but
happening in the world.
it's hair. It's important.
I do think it's important. I love it.
Hmm.
Anyhow,
So, have you recovered from our retreat?
I am recovered. I do have everything put away where it was when we started. So that's really exciting because, as you know, I packed like 7
Million things.
totes and all the musical instruments and everything. So I'm excited to get sound baths going again at the studio, and I'm finally over the complimentary cold that I got when I got back home. So yeah, it's everything is settling back in as much as life allows settlement. So
That's
how about
good.
you?
Yeah, I mean, I got back and just hit the ground running. I had, full client schedules and doing all the things and, sweat lodges and um yeah, all the things. So, I packed almost nothing, which was wonderful to not have to pack so much. Um, so yeah, I had things put away pretty quickly. Um, I
And you just beat the madness that's happening in Atlanta airport right now, where everything is canceled and people are there. Like, it is madness. Have you seen that?
no,
Like, Atlanta airport right now is madness. You missed it by like a hair. I think it's been like 3 days or something.
what's going on?
I don't know. Something canceled, blah, blah, blah. The domino effects, right? Like one flight, something happens, and then before
Okay,
you know it, everything else is affected. So yeah,
all right.
I haven't been paying that close attention, but I've seen enough videos where it's just packed.
Okay.
So
Well, I'm glad that we missed that.
yeah, absolutely. Manifested that.
I always like manifest ease, and I honestly have to say, like, my travel difficulties have been so minimal, so minimal. Um, so I do really want to learn how to teleport so I don't have to do all the airport stuff anymore. Um, I think I might be close, but
Good, good. Hurry before the government regulates that too. Um, I I think the longest I ever took to get home was from Canada, where, I should have gotten home pretty quickly because it really isn't that big of a deal of a flight, but between cancellations and running from one gate to the other and delays and whatever, it took me 17 hours of travel to get home, and that was brutal because you're awake all 17 hours, right? So,
yeah,
that's the hardest, like, airport story I have. Which
yeah,
is
no,
still fine. I mean, if I would have been anywhere near closer, I would have rented a car and just driven home. But I didn't wanna drive home from Canada. That was a
yeah,
little
that would
much.
be more than 17 hours, but flying 17 hours is like more than going to Egypt.
Right, right. Well, had I been flying the whole time, at least I would have felt like I was going somewhere, but I
Yeah,
spent, 15 of those sitting in an airport, so
no fun,
but
no fun. So,
anywho,
we talk about today's topic.
let's do it. What do we have?
Our topic for today is, what's your vision for a connected and compassionate world? And I like I see the potential for humanity, and I'm like, come on, people, come on, let's pull this together. But I like, because I think connected and compassionate go very well together. And it kind of rides on. Last week we were talking about the exchange program that I went on, AFS. I think it still exists out there. It's so weird though now because the world has shrunk so much with everything. And so I'm like, do these exchange programs still exist? And now I know they do because we had someone on our retreat who was hosting exchange students. But the more we all get to know each other, the less we hate each other, because you start to realize that people aren't as different as you believe them to be. And essentially, um, at the core, we are all the same. We are all one. We are all children of God. And if we all got to know each other and not what people think you are because of what the media has said, like, because this all, especially in our world here in the US right now, with the political situation. Democrats think that Republicans are the horrible people, and the Republicans think that all Democrats are stupid people. And I'm like, if you could actually sit and talk with each other and leave politics out of it, you would all realize that for the most part, you want the same thing. And it's just, and if they would just realize, like, the, the politicians aren't going to create this beautiful, compassionate world that we want. Like, it's up to us to create that world that we
And I think, in the it's up to us category, I think it's baby steps. I think it's understanding, starts with understanding your neighbor, understanding the person that you work with every day, understanding your family members, which sometimes is the hardest person to understand. Um, but I will say a good starting point, I do think, is the earth. I think when people come together for a common purpose, then those details don't matter, right? Like in our beautiful retreat that we just had, it was all about what do we have in common. Had I not been the facilitator, I wouldn't have known anybody's last name. I don't know what anybody did for a living. I don't know what their socioeconomical status is. I don't know how big of a house they live in or if they work. I don't know if they're Medicaid recipients or if they're multimillionaires, but what everyone had in common was the desire to be closer to the earth, the desire to heal themselves, the desire to live a better, happier life, And even though we were together for, 5 days, none of those things ever came up. Like, we really didn't talk about any of those things because while, yes, of course, they're important, and I've dedicated a lot of my life to, justice, so to speak, like making things right. And they do exist, and it is important, and I don't think we can ignore them. But at the core of who we are and what's important to us as human beings, it's just really your connection to another person, um, it's very fascinating to me that people will be super friends with each other and then find out that they belong to an opposing political party and completely cut everything off. And I just thought to myself, man, you were so close. Like, yes, of course, it's really hard when someone's voting against your right to exist. I get that 1,000%. But you were just showing them that your existence is just as beautiful as theirs, and then you cut it off. So I think my vision starts with just low-key understanding, just having those conversations, understanding why someone believes what they believe. I remember when I was in college and I was taking a psychology class, and we were talking about schizophrenia. And they were saying, if you believe, like, if you look at the delusion and you buy into it, then the behavior is perfectly normal, right? If I thought that someone was out to get me, I would run away and I would do all of these things, right? So you got to understand where folks are coming from, and you can only do it one at a time. That's what I think. And like I said, stewardship of the earth, go on, go meet people in the forest. Magic happens.
Magic definitely happens in the forest. And definitely our connection to, we view ourselves as separate from this planet, this living being that we live on. And, like, at a bare minimum, we need to come together and start taking care of our home. Like, we're just abusing her so badly. And she's been wonderful and has withstood a lot, but she may be reaching her breaking point with us. And um, like, how things could shift if just culturally we came together to make a difference there. Like, that is one thing that we all have in common, is that we live on the same planet and we need to take care of her. And I think it's so easy, like those of us that are city dwellers going on this retreat and spending 5 days out there in nature and, like, not hearing all the sounds, the noises, the distractions of city life. Um, like it definitely shifts you. And yeah, and magic is the only word that comes to mind for me to describe what that is. And and like someone said, I walk in the park that's across the street from me every day, and that's nice, but it's not the same as getting out there and being full on um,
Immersed.
immersed. Yeah,
Yeah. And I think also, like, depending on where you go, right? Like, your city park is a beautiful place to start, and I think that that's amazing, but that's completely different than standing on top of a mountain and seeing the vastness of everything. I think you mentioned in your youth, well, at some point in your life, you like climbed a windmill somewhere, right? And I
oh
imagine that right? I imagine that the view up there reminded you that you're a speck of dust. Like, you're just a tiny little thing on this huge amazing world, and even though social media and news and all this connectedness, quote unquote, has made us feel like, oh, China's right there, the Grand Canyon's just right down the street, and all of these things, which it is available, but it's not, we're so used to seeing the world in this 2 by 3 block that you think it's not a big deal because it's a calendar on your wall, or it's a piece of paper, on your desk, or a piece of technology in your hand. But go stand in front of those things and see the vastness and the grandeur of it all. Like, learn your place, and you'll see how amazing that is. And then to realize that even though you are so small, one person's contribution makes or breaks it. I mean, that's how delicate it is. So
absolutely.
anyway,
And that was not in my youth that I climbed that windmill. That was, and actually, so funny story. Like
where
we
was
were,
that?
pardon,
Where was that?
in the Netherlands,
Oh.
and but this was probably, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. Um, but I broke my toe like a couple days before we were supposed to go climb the windmill, and like everybody else, like you literally had to be in a climbing harness and locked in because you had to climb up this ladder that went to the top. But because my toe was broken, they wouldn't let me climb it, and I had to ride this like tiniest elevator I've ever been in my entire life. But yeah, that was interesting going up there. But I also want to talk about, like, as you were talking, talking about like all of us like looking at these little screens all the time and thinking that we're connecting, and I say this all the time, like I love this to be able, because I do have friends and family all over the world, and it's not always convenient to you know to have real-time connection with them, but I can see their photos and where they are and what they're doing,
Mhm.
and that feels good to me to be able to see that. And then when we do actually connect and talk, it's like, oh yes, I saw this and that looked amazing, and so like it does create some connection there. But in-person connection is, the retreat. I think that was like one of, we did all these amazing exercises and cool activities, but the core of what we did was like all of us being connected without television, without our cell phones, like having real conversations. And, before the pandemic, I thought I was being social, going out and networking all the time. But you don't really connect with people when you're out. The music is so loud, you can't hear, you're like screaming at each other and just passing business cards. And it's really difficult to make real connection, which I love, like tonight at the womb, the meditation room at my office where we meet, we're having community night for people to just come and hang out and talk about real things and connect. And, if you just need to vent and come in and have caring people listen to you, or if you have a question you're struggling to find the solution to, like, we're just going to be there and show up for each other, and we'll probably laugh a little bit. We'll probably cry a little bit. Who knows? but it's about creating real connection, and that's where the magic happens.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely, absolutely. I I think it's pretty easy to create those spaces anywhere and everywhere, and, for the people that need something to do, like clean up an area and go do a beach cleanup or things like that while you're there. You're meeting people that think just like you, and you're doing something, like I said, that's good for the earth. Um, and so, even if you're having a hard time finding compassion for your neighbor, you can find compassion for the earth. And I think that crosses all lines, and not everything has to be so defined, you know? So, and I do think it's all possible, and I think it takes an enormous amount of commitment from every single person to live their lives in that way, so we'll just keep on trudging along, we'll keep on keeping on.
yeah, no, and it really is up to the individual. Like, people are sitting back waiting for the leaders to make this change, and honestly, like, the people that are leading, all they're looking at is bank accounts. What's best for the bank accounts here, and completely missing the picture that there is enough for everybody on this world. Like, stop hoarding your, like, it's literally hoarding. You're hoarding money out of fear.
Mm,
And um it begins with us being compassionate with our neighbors, with strangers, with people we don't even know. Show some compassion. Like,
mm.
those things, like, literally, you smiling at a stranger on the street can have a huge impact on how the world unfolds in front of us.
Yeah. I'm going to take this opportunity to do yet another plug for Braiding Sweetgrass. Please read Braiding Sweetgrass. I've said it so many times that if you listen to our show and you haven't read it at this point, call me. I will read it to you. We will set up what was it? What used to be called like Masterpiece Theater, right? The guy in the big chair with the
Oh,
pipe. Like, I will sit in the big chair with the big pipe and I will read
I
it to
see
you.
your fireplace over there. Like, I think that would be amazing.
Totally.
Um,
And it's such a beautiful wish for the world, and it talks about being a global citizen in terms of earth, and it talks about what a gift economy would look like. You have to think radical thoughts if you want radical change, so think really big, and have that big idea and grow it.
yeah,
There are some amazing organizations out there, here locally, because our area is so rich and so full, and we have a place called, I think it's called Mind Spring Preservation Trust, and they go around doing free education about the area, and like the trees, and just really, really fascinating stuff. And one of the things that it's things that you don't even you would never even think about, so that they were talking about how the animal life and plant life that exists at the bottom of the mountain is totally different than what exists at the top of the mountain. And if you take the peaks of the tops of the mountains, it's the same that exists like in really northern states and countries, right? So a bird that only exists on a mountain peak in Maine actually also exists on a mountain peak in North Carolina, because they're both at the same elevation. And the ones that, like when the earth was being created and the mountains were shifting, the ones that were here got isolated. And so now they can't go over there because there's not enough like high places in between to get there. And anyway, it's just really fascinating. And the more you know, the more you develop compassion for it. Um, anyway.
no, when you were talking about braining sweetgrass, I like, reciprocity is such a beautiful concept that people have completely forgotten. And it's, um yes, sometimes your reciprocity can be giving money, but for the most part, like, that's not true reciprocity. And I, like, I think about when all of us sang to the water up in North Carolina, like it's, I don't know, to someone in the city it might look ridiculous. Oh, here's 10 women singing to the water. What the hell? But, talking about what we know about water and how it carries the frequency. And so the the gratitude and respect and honor that we were giving to the water, like that water trickles through and connects with all the other water in the world. And so it nourishes Mother Earth and it nourishes the human beings there. And so just understanding that that act so simple will spread love and compassion to anybody who's touched by a drop of that water.
Yeah, and I mean, let's just pretend for a second that you don't believe any of it, right? Let's just pretend that it's all nonsense, that it's just, crazy ladies doing crazy things, right? Let's just pretend you ignore all the research and all the books and everything that we actually know about water and memory and how it behaves and its cleanliness and how it cleanses itself, when it's in a certain state, etc. What about your own self? What about just the vibration that you create sitting in gratitude? And we know that you can change how you show up in the world because when you're in love, right? When you get that crisp fall day and you have that I'm in love feeling, you just tread more lightly in the world, right? You have more patience in traffic and you are a little bit nicer at the grocery store, So creating that sense of gratitude and connection is something you can take everywhere. I always say, every time I teach about cacao, I always say, it's a heart opener. It's used in ceremonies and it's used before like tribal council meetings and things like that. And imagine if a group of politicians, if Congress, or before, I don't know, a trial in a courtroom, what if everybody drank a cup of cacao before they started, right? What would it be like if everyone started their interaction heart centered, I always tell the story about how I discovered cacao, and it was a client of mine who said, today is our photo shoot day. I have brought you cacao. And I was like, what is that? Like, I don't know what that is. I'm like, I have to focus, literally focus. I'm a photographer. I can't be like high or something. Like, what is this about? And she explained it to me and she's like, please just trust me. It's not psychedelic. It's just, it opens up your heart and you will just see. And it was one of the best photo shoots I've ever had, So giving myself permission to start from a heart-centered place literally, makes me money, right? So if what you're worried about is I need to make more money because I need to feed my family and I need to this and I need my 401k and I got a plan for my retirement and all of those things are beautiful. I'm not saying don't do it. I do it. I have a plan for my life, but starting from love and starting from a heart-centered place has gotten me way further than when I start with fear. When I start with, oh my God, if I don't make $5 today, what am I going to do if I don't make $5 tomorrow? Right. And and you get panicked and all of a sudden, and then all the panicky things start showing up in your world. Right. But when you start with that warm heart, whether literally with a cup of cacao or just through your own calm meditation, mindfulness, whatever it is you want to call it, the world looks different. It's a different lens that you're looking through, and that was one of the things that came up with our retreat attendees, is the lens with which they view the world has changed. So everybody, we were laughing last night in our catch-up call because everybody's like, oh, life be life, and walked right back in and everything was exactly the same, but they weren't the same. They see things differently. So yes, the person in your life that's irritating you is still there, and your job might be irritating you and the traffic might be irritating you, but those things are there, but you're different. Your lens is different, so don't wait for the world to change. Just change your lens and you will see things differently. And eventually these things will all converge, right?
Amen, sister.
Anyway,
Oh,
well, we're in July, so halfway through the year. Winter is coming. I'm already worried about that. You know me.
I'm laughing that you're worried about winter because sitting here where I'm sitting, we've got the two hottest months of the year ahead of me right now.
Oh, me
And
too. I'm not scared of those.
although I will say it was so funny, we had Sweat Lodge on Saturday night, which was beautiful. But while we were in there, this huge gust of wind blew through. And so, there's 4 rounds. And so they have to open the door to bring more hot rocks in and to make us hotter and sweat more. But when we opened the door after that, it was probably 80 degrees outside, but it felt frigid out there. And I was like, what is going on here? I'm like, this is summer in Florida and it's cold outside. But yeah. And if anybody local's listening, I'm so excited. On Saturday night, we have a women's sweat that this will be our third women's only sweat, but this is the first one that's like actually open to anybody. So if you are in Fort Lauderdale area and you want to join, if you're female, want to join us for the women's sweat, please reach out and I will happily get you the information. But women are definitely a greater source of connection and compassion, like feminine energy is. And sitting inside the sweat lodge, like I feel like the solution to all the problems of the planet could happen inside a women's sweat lodge. And so if you're out there listening and want to join us, please reach out. I will happily share the information with you. The world needs the women to show up and bring the compassion, and that sacred feminine energy will bring to an end all of the ridiculousness that's out there. I promise. It's up to us to tap into that and nurture it and bring it back. We got to resuscitate it. It needs our help.
And if you need support doing any of that, if the idea of showing up in the world that can be so cruel, showing up in a kind way feels like it's too much. And if you're thinking like, well, Graciela, that's all very cute, but you just don't get it. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about that. I'm all about it. I'm all about I know that my experience of the world is limited to my experience of the world. And so if you have a different life experience that you feel is preventing you from showing up that way, let's talk about it. It doesn't have to be a whole retreat. It could just be a phone call. I had a Zoom call with someone recently who was struggling, and 45 minutes later, she had a different viewpoint and felt better and got a different lens. So I think one of my biggest struggles is seeing folks with the suffering lens, the lens that prevents you from living the life that you want, and me knowing that it's just a lens. Like if you would just take that one step, your whole life would change, your whole viewpoint would change. So if that sounds like too good to be true, call me. Let's have a debate. I'd love it. Let's just talk about it, because who I am today is drastically different than who I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago. I mean, I don't want to go on because, I'm like 100, but it's true. And lens changes can happen for anyone at any time. And it's not as hard as you think it is. So leave yourself room for joy, because it is there. I promise.
Yay.
All righty.
That feels like a good note to end the show on. So
yeah, all things are possible.
Yes, they are indeed. All right. With that, I wish everybody a magical day.
All right. Bye.